What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast, and there's a lot of Twitter stuff going on right now, especially with Elon Musk. So stay tuned for that. But this post right here by the Bearable Bull says it all. Jeff Bezos just sold billions worth of Amazon stock for the second time this week, and this was on May 7th. And what's happening is the when something gets expensive and you're owning it, a good way to manage what you own is, sell it when it gets too expensive. If it's overpriced, sell it, get profits. We see right now that things are getting way overpriced. Inflation is really, it's starting to pick up, and these billionaires are taking profits off of what they have. And it's just getting insane. And take a look at this post here by Stanley Druckenmiller. He said that the Fed is robbing the poor to pay the rich. And here this guy says in 2013, successful investor Stan Druckenmiller called QE, so quantitative easing, the biggest redistribution of wealth from the middle class and poor to the rich ever. Recently, Fed Chair Powell claimed the Fed has nothing to do with wealth concentration. Who do you believe? And so what's happening is we're seeing that with all this QE, with all this money printing, there's a new creation of money in the system, and it's it's not good. It's not good at all. And inflation doesn't hit everyone the same. The middle and lower uh, classes are affected a lot more than the rich are. And so it's not looking too good. And we see a lot of distortions in the market, and a lot of people, obviously the middle and lower classes, are being affected insanely. You see people who can't even pay their rent, people who can't even buy food. And it's crazy because people who are making minimum wage can't even live off of that. They're homeless. In San Francisco, case in point, if you make minimum wage in San Francisco, you're homeless. You can't survive. And in today's day and age, it's a lot worse after all these economic distortions that are being done by the Fed. Now, here is something interesting that Elon Musk has been posting. He said, Bitcoin is actually highly centralized, with super majority controlled by a handful of big mining, or aka hashing companies. A single coal mine in Xinjiang flooded, almost killing miners, and Bitcoin hash rate dropped 35%. Sound quote unquote decentralized to you? And then he says, for those bad at math, 100x higher transaction volume with 100x lower fees means total fees earned stay same. Low fees and high volume are needed to become currency of Earth. Interesting. And now you're saying that. Then he says, to be clear, I strongly believe in crypto, but it can't drive a massive increase in fossil fuel use, especially coal. And he's been saying this. This is kind of crazy to think that he's been talking about this kind of stuff and just spitting all these facts. And people are kind of going crazy, and they say that he's manipulating the market. And that could be a reason why we've seen a big dump recently. Now, I'm going to continue this later, but I'll come back to this. Now, what do we see here of Brad Garlinghouse saying how a digital asset becomes a store of value? There's the need versus want, and this from Rick's RP boy. He said there can't be a store of value for the sake of being a store of value. We have to have a use case, which is what Chris Larson says, and and I'll show that video. But check this out.
Dormant capital sitting in almost the engine that is correspondent banking, the engine that is international payments. Any engine needs oil. The oil that exists in international payments is that pre-funding. That pre-funding represents $10 trillion of pre-funded, just kind of dormant capital sitting there to grease that engine. If we, as what Ripple's trying to do, is if we can make that 10 billion down to 9 billion down to 5, you've massively made the global economic engine more efficient. You can take that $5 trillion going from 10 trillion to 5 trillion, and you can reinvest it in all kinds of stuff. Whether it's, I mean, you could do dividends, you could do working capital, you could hire more people, you could, fill in blank.
And if that's their first goal and it's $10 trillion, do the math. At minimum, XRP would have to be $100 if it replaces those $1 trillion, $10 trillion. That's like a floor price. And when they talk about all the money, it's all the money. Now hear Chris Larson talk about you can't just be a store value just to be a store value, and you have to have a use case.
Speculation. Obviously, a lot of the market today is really speculative. But we think over the long run, it's going to be that combination of deep liquidity, market makers, institutional bets being made. But very importantly, it has to have a use case. We think the use case for the XRP ledger and XRP, the digital asset, is really around initially reducing the cost of liquidity for cross-border payments. Long term, though, we think it's a key winner in this race to be another digital asset for the world for all kinds of use cases. So that's the way we see it. It's a long-term play, has to have value, can't just be a store of value for store of value's sake.
It's a long-term play. And so this is not for short term. They're not looking, a couple months down the road. They're looking for 5, 10 years down the road. And that's what you have to realize. You have to be patient with it. Yeah, it's the most suppressed asset in the market, but it's the one with the most utility. And it has liquidity pools, market makers that are basically a node away. Okay? Now, next thing here is this is, I think, a central banker from the Bank of Canada, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong, but listen to what he has to say.
Deputy Director Timothy Lane from the Bank of Canada commenting on CBDC.
System. And so, we have research that's been showing up on our website, but we're actually now at a bit of an inflection point where we're moving from research to something that feels a lot more like contingency planning. From research to something that feels a lot more like contingency planning, because we're aware that the world can change very quickly. And although we don't think that Bitcoin is the money of the future, we think that it's got too many flaws in its design to be that.
Yeah, so it's not, it can't. And Elon Musk has been tweeting about it on Twitter and telling the people the facts. And it's just not going to cut it in terms of being the world money. It's really not. Now here is Elon Musk talking about UBI. And this is interesting because it's something George Gavan has been talking about for a while. And look at what he has to say.
But what to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job. Machine, robot is taking over.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen.
And UBI, we've seen massive unemployment that's been taking place. And it's unbelievable the levels of unemployment, people who just don't have a job. And we're seeing little by little. I know California, it's LA and San Francisco. We're going to trial some UBI programs. So it's happening faster than we think. And they'll be here a lot sooner than we think too. But UBI is not a good thing because then you're dependent on the government. And that's a scary thought. Now, it's funny because now circling back to what Elon Musk said earlier, Mr. Whale tweeted this. He said, Bitcoiners are going to slap themselves next quarter when they find out Tesla dumped the rest of their Bitcoin holdings. With the amount of hate Elon Musk is getting, I wouldn't blame him. Then Elon Musk responded, indeed. Wow, I'm telling you, this market is heating up, and it's getting very, very interesting, to say the least. And then he tweeted this, and he said, "Hey, cryptocurrency experts, ever heard of PayPal? It's possible, maybe, that I know. I think you forgot the more that I know more than you realize about how money works." Man, I wonder if he's been listening to DAI's channel, because he's been talking about PayPal and intergalactic currency. But make no mistake, this man knows a lot more than people think. And he knows more than we know, for sure. And I think he's been involved in everything that, DAI's been talking about on his channel. Now, to end this, George Gavan posted this: the world economy is suddenly running low on everything. And this is an article you can check out. But it's true. If the U.S. runs on trade deficits, and at some point, the um, it's gonna come back and bite you. There's consequences to all this money printing, and if we're not aware of everything that's happening, we're gonna go along with everything. We're gonna be unprepared. So it's good to plan ahead, and that's why I always talk about making sure you have something tangible, something that you can hold, like property, land, or whatever the case may be. Because those numbers in your checking account, they're just banking liabilities. At any point, that could be taken away from you. And the banks, the on and off ramps into the economy, if they're shut down for whatever reason, maybe a power outage, cyber attack that may last for a while, you may not have access to your money. Take for example Greece, perfect example. People were in lines, they were protesting, or they had limits on how much they could withdraw every single week. And so, if there's ever a worst case scenario, you're well prepared. And so that's what we want to do on this channel: prepare people and educate them on things that are happening, and just to show the absurdity of how much the Fed is involved in, or the government and the Fed are involved with our economy. Milton Friedman said this: if you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years there would be a shortage of sand. So he's just putting into perspective, literally, how the involvement of the Fed and the government in our daily lives, it just ruins the free market and the supplies of everything. So keep your head on a swivel, and be prepared for the unexpected, is my best advice to you. Hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe, comment below. What are your thoughts on the shortage of supplies around the world? Let me know. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.